welcome you to this session again with Marsh Host, where we are going to talk about the benefits of tourism. And this is one of the essay which was there in June 2021, but however, it was never been asked in November examination. So today we'll look into that particular case. I believe my our sound editor, the voice is quite clear enough. So we do have some revising activities which we have scheduled for you. For tourism, you can see there's the chapter, the 11th, and reflection is on the 12th, and then environmental sustainability on the 13th of November. All of this, it is free. All of this is free with Marsh Host. I thank those who have helped us to develop our start guideline, which is understanding economics with Noel. So when we look at the benefits of tourism, we need to understand that we are talking about the concept tourism. We are defining what is tourism. That's what one should actually understand. And you have to know that they can ask you, it's either they have to say to you, examine in detail the benefits of tourism, or they are going to say to you, discuss. So it is up to the examiner how we are going to see this waiver, or how we are going to discuss this. And then we shall look as well at the additional part which says evaluate the South African government policies to promote tourism, and that gives us a total of 10 marks, and the whole essay now will be 40 marks. So when we look at the benefits of tourism, we need to talk about households, we need to talk about businesses, we need to talk about state, we need to talk about infrastructure development. You are all aware of the Rea Vaya. We can take it back to the issues of 2010. So these are some of the things which we need to remember. How do we remember this? I always tell people that if you could rather bring the letter B, right, you bring the letter I, you bring the letter G, and then I'm just going to say this is my big H, like that's big H, where B is business and I is infrastructure and G it is your government and H is your household. So let's look basically into what we have when we talk about these aspects. Introduction is very important when you're writing your essay. So in this case, we need to define what is tourism. And we are aware that tourism is the activities of people traveling and staying in places outside, their usual environment, for no more than one consecutive year. So it's either these people, they can go for leisure, they can go for business, or other purposes, or however you can define tourism. But it is always important that we stick to the definition of, we mention the characteristics of a tourism. You have to stay at least for one night and a maximum of 1 year. You go to a place and you're staying for over a year, it cannot be regarded as a tourism. Maybe you're now a resident there. So we look at the main part of this, where we have now to talk about the benefits, which is first is the household, is us. What do we do when we talk about tourism? What can we contribute, me as a household? Now we have to understand that if we do have households, how do we benefit there? we do earn an income from the sector. Like, you have seen people traveling, you have seen people guiding others in terms of the tour operators, especially in the Vilakazi Street, going to Vilakazi in Soweto, or any other area, where you have these tour operators, people who guide you to move from one area to another. We have the use of travel agents, they tell you, etc., etc. So we get a certain income from that particular tourism is there in our country. We actually receive, many households are directly involved in tourism as employees, e.g. hotels, transport sector. Most of us have our cars. We use our cars for us to earn a certain income. So therefore, we are the employees and there is a particular sector. Entrepreneurs from households that operate as kilo producers, musicians, can earn income from the tourism. You see a lot of artists going, whether it's Craig of Humankind, they do go there to perform. They're not only performing as to only to entertain the household, but however they are entertaining so that they also get a source of income. So households, they will become entrepreneurs in this case if tourism is continuing to increase. A large number of households acquire skills. I wasn't aware of this particular aspect, but now because I'm involved into these activities, I can then acquire those skills so that if the next person comes, if the next tourist comes, I'm well versed with the information. I'm well knowledgeable with that information. As we lack skills in this country, it is important that we need to note that tourism can actually increase skills in their particular industry. And most of these skills do not require much time to acquire them. The school curriculum and learnership offer opportunities to acquire these skills. Learners do start tourism at the school level, and they've understood a lot of things, how to deal with this sort of fatigue, and what are the most iconic aspects to there. By them learning, they acquire skills. So imagine yourself from grade 12, now you are moving into the, let's say after you've finished your matric this year, and then you have the opportunity to actually go and work in the tourism sector because you have knowledge from what you've been learning throughout the year. So it is important that the government should provide these learnerships. They're actually there. In the school curriculum, tourism, it is there. It is a very imperative subject which one has to actually know. One is actually understand the importance of it. Encourages rural development. Listen to this word, encourages rural development. Why do we need to go in rural? We are avoiding the issue of centralizing all the activities in one area. Let's decentralize these activities. And when we look at rural areas, usually we have a lot of ecotourism. Right? In those areas, we can actually improve employment in the rural areas. So many tourist attractions are located in rural areas, not because they do not have the required skills, but it actually have a lot of tourist attractions in that particular site. We have then what calls the business sector. People do open their business. As you can see, that business sector already you do have a tick, right? You do have a tick there. That is 1 mark for you. As the previous one, which you talked about household, you have 1 mark plus the explanation. So it is important that when you write your essay, you need to provide the heading. Tourism stimulates businesses in areas. Where do we have them? Accommodation, hotels. Where would tourists go? I mean, where would they sleep if they do not have accommodation? If they do not have entertainment, surely what is going to entertain them? Yes, as long as we have that entertainment, remember the issue of indigenous knowledge, that we need to show these people how we live. They need to understand our lifestyle. The construction industry in private public partnership with the government to provide the infrastructure in the manufacturing sector. We talk about the issue of recreation sector, all benefits from increased demand due to tourism. Because tourists are coming. I still remember in 2010, like there were a lot of businesses. And we were all positive about this is going to be great. I assume that one day we're going to evaluate this. So if the private and public partnership works together to say that let the government provide the land and let the private sector build, surely that eventually is going to boost. Remember that with this private partnership, more people will be motivated to open their own businesses because they will see that they are generating a certain income in that particular area. We look at the issues of that the previous disadvantaged communities, they will get opportunities to open their business. And now this is where we can actually say that the black economic empowerment is working. We have been evaluating, we have been told about the successes and the failures, but when it comes to tourism, it is important that we ensure that this policy is successful. A large number of people get business opportunities in the informal sector. You find them, they'll be selling their own items. They'll be selling their own items, right? It can be cultural, or whatever it can be clothes that they have designed. So that is an opportunity for them. Because tourists love to know how do we live. They cannot recognize us that these are people in the informal sector. They see you as an entrepreneur. So in this case, we are simply saying that tourism increases employment. Tourism increases the gross domestic product in our country. Local retailers may have an increase in sales. Why? Because number of tourists is increasing. They cannot have profit if we do not have tourists. But in this as a business sector, we are saying today that their sales, their profit in the business, it increases as the number of tourists increase. It is unfortunate that we face all this pandemic, which is actually affecting, and the issues of crime, which also do affect us. So all those aspects need to be noted. Private business and government work in partnership. Why do they work in partnership? To provide infrastructure needed for tourism. As we said in the first point, we talked about the issues of accommodation. So we need to ensure that these people, when they come, they need to find an area where they can sleep. They need to have good roads where we actually need to avoid the issue of potholes, the issues of traffic congestion. The increase in the market share of income of these businesses. Some businesses may go internationally after tourists they visited, and they are happy. They go and share the knowledge outside of what they've experienced in our country. So it is important to know that it does not only benefit us in this particular area, but it can benefit the rest in terms of the world. Allowing existing business to improve the quality. How can we improve quality? We need to ensure that we have competition. And how do we have competition? We usually bring it by low prices. And also, we talk about the need to have variety of their product. We cannot be having same goals. We need to have different goals. So by having those different goals, the quality changes. The value of these products actually changes. Allow natural monopolies, e.g., we talk about the issue of what? Table Mountain, Cableway, to achieve abnormal profits. Where it is important, charge what is necessary. Like, who doesn't want to go to a Table Mountain? True. But that's a nice, wonderful place to go and enjoy. So, The public sector also provides a range of financial incentives. I love our government. I think I should open a business there as well, like getting an incentive, and I'm getting loans. You do get loans, you do get tax rebates, because so what they are saying here, they're saying if I open my business, today, they will actually give me a grant. But remember, there's a process you have to follow. Actually, I can get a loan. Actually, in terms of tax, they're going to reduce my tax. Remember why the government is doing this, Leonards. By giving you this tax, by giving you these loans, or the banks are giving you the loans, they know in return that the more the tourists they buy, the more the value added tax increases. We talk about our government, our state. How do they benefit? How do they benefit? As previously talked from the circular flow in our first video, one of the presenters actually talked about this. So I say the main revenue should be revenue, not avenue. Should be revenue. The main revenue for the government to benefit from tourism is through leveling taxes. It is important that we have to know that the source of government is through tax. It is customary for governments to level specific tax on the tourism sector. And such taxes have two purposes. The purpose number one is to recover external costs, which are basically caused by the issues of externalities. We do love to pollute a load in this country. The second purpose is to raise revenue. Remember, when they raise this revenue, they are going to maintain our infrastructure. They are going to ensure that we do not have potholes. They are going to ensure that these tourists do have a safe place to sleep. They are taking that money for that particular purpose. The most common forms of raising public income from tourism is of airport departure tax, the air ticket which you buy, you are taxed, right? Tax on the hotel room. There's a certain amount you should pay. As well, those who love to go to casino, to explore, to play remember entertainment. Through all those activities which have been created, there is tax, and government does benefit from that. Foreign tourists who visit, you have to know that who visit South Africa also pay all the normal expenditure tax, such as value-added tax. We talk about the issues of excess duties. We talk about the issues of custom duties. That actually increases our revenue. However, on the departure from the country's tourists can reclaim the value-added tax, but usually they don't. You know why? They're in a rush to go back home. They've been paid. Remember, a tourist is a person with their own money. So it is important. It is very unrare for them to say, may I have my value-added tax? Infrastructure development. Do we remember in 2010? Look how from 2009, maybe until up to 2015, before the infrastructure was destroyed, our hotels were so well active. So when we talk about infrastructure development, we need to ensure that the tourists are safe. So we need to ensure that also that our infrastructure is maintained for tourist destination. We can look at the issues of currently load shedding which South Africa is currently facing. That actually can demotivate tourists to come to our country. Because who would want to be in the dark? And remember when you don't have light, usually criminal activities actually increase. So anyway, locals share this infrastructure with tourists. Remember, we do have inbound tourists and outbound. So we do share with these other tourists which come. Like our locals, they move from Eastern Cape to Durban, right? They move from Durban to Limpopo. But wherever they want to explore the items, that's what you can explore. Government often prioritizes economic infrastructure like the issues of poles. We have to ensure that they are okay. Where we have to go and swim. They have to explore that we do have a lot of beaches in South Africa. People want to see those items. In addition to physical and basic infrastructure, social infrastructure is important for the growth of tourism. We do have stadiums. Usually Chiefs and Pirates, when they're playing, you can see that the stadium is usually packed. So we need such entertainment. And I wish in the long run that all the sports in South Africa could have a full-packed stadium when these two teams are actually meeting. So we have talked about this spatial development initiative. What does it say to us learners? Talk about areas which are underdeveloped with economic potential output. And this is where we must put our infrastructure. Once we have done that, we are tracking everyone. As I said earlier, we can not only be based in the central place. Let's decentralize giving our infrastructure so that it attracts all the areas. We then now look at the additional part. Basically, people don't like it. Why they don't like it, I have no idea. This question requires what you call critical thinking. When they say evaluate, there are two important things. You need to provide your positive and your negative in this case. So what will be your negative of this? So let's read the question. Evaluate the South African government policies to do what? To promote tourism. We need to promote tourism. We need to increase employment. We need the gross domestic product to increase. So let's evaluate how successful has been our government. So these are the successes. Indicate what they're talking about when you're writing this additional part. It is important to write your knowledge because this additional part cannot be found in any of the textbooks. So government, they have managed to implement the issues of tax. And through this tax, the growth of tourism has actually been successful. Targeting specific objectives for special favorable tax treatment in the form of tax holidays, rebates, tax credit schemes. So by them reducing the tax, they actually know that you will visit. But by ensure that our exchange rate is stable, it is important for the tourists to come. Encouraging ecotourism. Let's take them to our nature. Let's show them how beautiful it is, South Africa. Encouraging tourism to selected regions. We talk about these SMEs actually promote more employment. We have more people are being involved there and being employed. But now as a police, what are we saying? We are simply saying, let's put these SMEs in certain regions, in those SDI regions, and ensure that in the informal sector, the employment also increases. So that has been a success. Now, we talk about the issue of accelerated share growth initiative of South Africa. We need to ensure that this initiative ensure that the government, in partnership with the private sector, they should provide necessary infrastructure for tourism. Remember that if our infrastructure is very beautiful, it is aesthetic, tourists will love to come to this particular area. So because of our infrastructure, that it is too awesome. It is, I don't know what word I can use. It has managed to attract tourism, and the tourism sector has grown, and the tourism has increased employment. Applying the domestic growth strategy, we cannot start it somewhere else. We need to start at home. If we encourage our people to spend locally, then the policy has been successful. How do we do that? Through reducing of tax, and the local people will be motivated. The failures of government. I don't think so in the world there's a government which does not fail. So remember when I say failure, I'm talking about bad things, negative. I was talking about success, now I'm talking about failures of government. So special tax policies are applied to education, training programs designed to overcome the lack of skills at various levels of the industry. They failed. These of education and training programs, they've actually failed. And this actually affected a lot of the growth of tourism. There's a great geographical spread of tourism which will increase the volume of domestic tourism. So you have to look at, if we cannot spread, I've been talking over, if I could say rather, about more of the issues of decentralization. So we need first to attract our domestic tourists, so that they share the message with the others. How do you conclude a essay? You don't write anything which you have indicated anyway in this particular essay. A weaker exchange rate has been a major contributing factor of South African tourism growth over the many years. So if we realize that, let's say $1 is equivalent to 14, they don't come. But let these being one, let it be $1, right? Is to attract tourism will have. Why is it so? Things will be cheap. So by you concluding on this particular issue, you need to ensure that you think out of box. I believe you have benefited from this, and I wish you the best in your exams. So when they say discuss government and households, how do they benefit from tourism? I believe now you do have something to do. So you can always talk to us on 084 right 90 2 6 2 90. You can contact this number anytime between 7 a.m. until 10 o'clock. Our lessons are for free.